Hang on!
In a television first, skippers reveal their most guarded secrets as they take us inside their world.
In these conditions, it's hard enough just standing up, let alone throwing the grapple and pulling in a pot.
It's the Lobster Men versus the elements.
I think a lot of blokes down in the pub don't realise how much of a hard job this is.
The engine fails.
Hey, fucking hell! You doing it?
There's something serious going on.
The terrifying near misses.
Yeah, fucking prick. No one else is stupid enough to come out here.
And the tragedies.
It was so cold they just stripped off and just laid there in the open air and just died.
What makes you feel alive, mate? Bit of salt water.
Disaster and death is ever present for the skippers and their crews.
I've been in incidents where people have lost their lives. I lost 2 good mates, what drowned.
It's an environment which is just high risk. It's as dangerous as being a soldier in Afghanistan.
Lobster hunting is one of the deadliest jobs in the world.
What the fuck is that?
This just happens to be the windiest place in Australia.
Matt Cyer Island, and skipper Warren has brought the Barrowlee here, chasing half a tonne of lobsters. The old man of the sea calls this place the Big Witch.
The Big Witch. The fishermen have only ever called it the Big Witch.
Gale force winds are the norm around here. The highest recorded wind gust was 176 kilometres an hour, equivalent to 95 knots.
What an asshole of a place.
No, it's not. It's beautiful. Look at it. So lovely and green.
Lobster boats are built to withstand winds of up to 50 knots and waves of up to 20 metres. The Barrowlee is right in the hot zone.
500 kilo. If we can get a few days of good weather, regardless of what we're catching, we'll just hang in there and keep trying.
When the Big Witch blows, livelihoods are at stake. But Matt Cyer is a proven hunting ground for southern rock lobsters.
God, it's dynamic. It is really, really dynamic, and it changes so fast, which is very common for places in the roaring 40s, is this really rapid, dynamic weather change.
The roaring 40s, extreme westerly winds, are frequent in the southern hemisphere.
We'll hang around here for a few days and just see how we go.
It's often said Matt Cyer's where they make the wind. They make the wind there and send it everywhere else. Winds there can often get up to 50 and 60 and 70 knots.
I think it's true to say that most experienced fishermen would never regard a spell of calm weather at Matt Cyer as likely to last very long.
The Bureau of Meteorology, Tasmania, and there's a massive storm front closing in over the Southern Ocean.
You can see we have a low with a surface trough just to the south of Tasmania, and then in behind that low we see strong to gale force winds impacting on the west coast. Looking at the total wind wave height here, the peak in that total wave height as it reaches Tasmania is up to 8 to 9 metres, which is a really significant sea height. For anyone to be on the water in those conditions is quite dangerous, but in particular, a small vessel, 8 to 9 metre total wave heights are really big seas and quite dangerous.
The Barrowlee is on a collision course with the storm.
So it's going to takes about an hour to get across here. So 1, 2, about 3.5 hours to get there.
Further south, the Minamurra will soon be in the firing line of the very same storm.
When the weather's bad, a simple mistake can just turn into a nightmare, really.
I'm hoping to catch around half a tonne of lobsters at least. The old bank account's been slowly taking a hit as the bills have been paid because they don't stop. Stick and stay and make it pay.
We're all on our own. As far as I know, there's no one else on the whole west coast.
Skipper Clyde is keen to get the first shot at these rich lobster grounds.
I got no one getting in my way. I can put my pots where I want it and there's no competition. We're looking to get at least 500 kilos of fish. That's around 600 fish in numbers. I'd be happy to get that.
Chinese demand is what drives the lobster price. Sometimes demand is strongest when the weather is at its worst. It's why skippers fish the big seas.
Something goes wrong, it's, there's no one here to call for help immediately. 35, 40 knots from the north. That's why we're down here on the bottom side, so we're anchored up in the lee of it.
So being so remote around the west coast, there's no radio or television, so I rely upon the HF radio. I'm listening out to that to see if there's any changes in the weather.
Yeah, I think we might give up on the radio. I can't quite hear it. So the weather affects the weatherman as well.
When the fierce weather rounds the southwest, it will sling back towards Matt Cyer, a place known for terror and drama. In 1973, the Matt Cyer lighthouse keeper was the last to see a ship called the Blythe Star. Moments later, the boat sank.
After Australia's most intensive air and sea search for 10 days, which produced no sign of the missing ship or its crew, and men had walked from Deep Glen Bay, 5 miles north of Pirate Bay off Eaglehawk Neck, across rugged country to Madonna.
No, none of them drowned. They just froze to death.
This is the whole point.
It was so cold, they just stripped off and just laid there in the open air and just died.
3 crew members died of hypothermia. The other 7 men survived.
If you go in the water and the boat goes away and you're floating in the water, in January you might last 3 hours. In June, I think a fisherman would last about 15 minutes. Maybe, if they were lucky. Not long.
You want the good news or the bad news? It's going to be 6, 7, 8 metres for the next 3 or 4 days, they say so. What do you reckon?
I don't know. I'd rather stay out here and fish.
Weed in the dinghy and a couple of pots, will we?
No, fuck that. Don't even
Skipper Warren won't have long to make his call. Stay and fish or motor home to port.
Last time I was talking to Dad, he was talking about hanging out. But I've looked at the weather and it looks ordinary, big swell, so I'm going to give him a ring and tell him he probably should come home because it's just not worth staying out there. It's bloody going to be real bad.
What's happening with the weather, Glenn? We're just trying to make up our mind what we're going to do.
Yeah, well, it didn't look real bloody bright there before. I'd probably be coming home if I was you. Looked like just a week of absolute shit.
Warren and Snotty take weather at Matt Cyer seriously. It's where they almost lost their lives.
I'll tell you, the bloody scariest moment I ever had was me and the old man, actually. Like, we probably shouldn't be here, really. We flipped the dinghy at the Big Witch, didn't we?
Yeah.
We're
about 75 knots southeast.
Yeah. Bloody whirlwinds were coming through, like, She just sat up like that, didn't flip, just sort of went arse down, and then just sort of rolled over. And me and the old man was under the dinghy, and it was like, I had all my wet weather gear on. We're in trouble here. Like,
that was bad because I remember that and I thought, the mind went through my mind, what the fuck have I done? Not only have I killed myself, but my son's going with it as well, you know?
And the worst part about it...
Warren would soon lose another round to the Big Witch.
We'd been sitting there for 3 or 4 days, waiting for the weather to abate. At that stage, the lighthouse was manned, so we thought we'd go up and have a talk to the lighthouse keeper for a couple of hours and then just wander back. And that's what we done. We went up to the lighthouse, and when we came back, the boat was on the rocks. It's not as bad as losing a member of your family, but I mean, you've lost a part of your life. Yeah.
Tuck around Matt Cyer, drop the hook, go to sleep, wake up in the morning, and it's 45, 50 knots, and that swell has built up to greater than 5 meters all of a sudden. And it just happens like that.
Crayfish!
The barrelee has 45 kilos worth of reds in the hold.
$4,500 worth of fish, I don't suppose you can really snooze, can you?
But that may be as good as it gets. Coming up,
Not getting blown off.
lives are on the line
There is that possibility that something bad can happen.
as the storm front takes hold.
I'm going to have to get wriggling here, Richo, with this fucking gear, matey. It's going to have to really be happening fast, because I don't want to be here on the flood tide fucking around for hours. So I'm really going to crank into it. Death Valley, it's a really productive sort of a spot.
King Island, Tasmania.
The target for this trip, ultimately we want to get 600 fish, which is going to be about a tonne, 1.8 kilo average, about 100 grand. That'll do us. We'll be happy with that.
But Danny will only hit his target on time and to budget if the approaching storm front subsides.
I don't even know who named it Death Valley. It's just been called it for years and years. It did claim some fishermen years ago and just get caught there, they get capsized. When the swell's really big and the tide runs back into it, it just stands up and falls over and breaks on itself, and you really can't get out of it. We don't like fishing there when the weather gets really, how you going? A really average place to be. There's an old saying, they say, mackerel skies and mare's tails, tall ships go to shorter sails. So when you see the sky streaking like that, it looks like a horse's tail when it's running. That's the mare's tails. And at other times in the sky, it looks like mackerel skin. It means it's going to blow. Tall ships go to shorter sails, means they shorten the sails down, so they get ready for bad weather, so they don't blow the rig down.
Danny has to decide if it's going to be worth the risk and the financial cost of fishing through the storm. The temperature has plummeted. The west to east winds are building.
It looks like on the satellite imagery we've got quite a few fronts coming up over the next few days.
The forecast has just got worse. There are multiple storm fronts rolling in.
The system with the deep low to the southwest of WA looks like a pretty decent
So I
one.
suppose that's the one that's bringing the total wave height of 8 metres.
Old landlubbers don't realise, I mean, they say 5 and 6 metres as well. They think, it doesn't really sound much when you say 5 or 6 metres, does it? But when you explain to them it's like a 2 or 3 storey building coming at you.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of difference.
A little bit of sea on top. Yeah, that's no wind on it.
We're looking for the rocks to put the pots on, but we just need to find some. Here comes some, maybe. We need the swell to go back desperately.
The Southern Ocean is probably one of the most dangerous areas in the world for severe weather. King Island is the major island in the western Bass Strait, and it's in the path of the strong westerly winds, the roaring 40s as we often call them. King Island experiences the first burst of those winds as they move through. We've had some extremely strong winds through that region.
10, 12, 15 metre swells, which is not dangerous in itself. It's the wind on top of the swell which can make it very uncomfortable. You can have 6 metres of wind wash or wind slop on top of 12 metre swell, which kicks up a tremendous sea.
I looked at the wave rider from the bureau down off Strawn, and it said down, 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 down. So we're going with that. It's going down, we're going in, the lobsters are going in, then they're having the one-way ticket to China. You know, if it gets to 60, 70, 80 knots, and it's just absolutely hopeless and it looks like it for a week, you might go home. Here it comes, the juiciness. Yep.
Danny's optimistic, but the William Norling will be the first to feel the fury of the roaring 40s.
Yep.
It's what the strong winds and swell does to the lobster pots that escalates the risk. If the pots bounce around, the lobsters just won't feed.
There's another front coming. He's got 40 knots in him. Then there's one straight behind him again that looks westerly, west-northwest for the rest of our lives. Nothing's changed. Swell's going to build again tonight to, 5 metres? I don't know. It's just hopeless. Just hopeless.
Danny's got $100,000 riding on this trip. But if the lobsters stop feeding, that will blow a hole in his profit margin.
You know, the outlook of the weather's poor. Look, head down, bum up. Just got to make it happen. Just keep pushing. Just keep pushing.
The longer Danny stays out, the lower his profit margin, as extra running costs like fuel and bait tears through the revenue top line.
Oh, it's a bit bleak. You know, the target looks a bit like the weather, doesn't it? Like the outlook's poor, 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 but you have to be optimistic, otherwise you'd never go fishing. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that, Richo nearly got me. If you thought, oh, the weather's garbage, oh, we're not going to catch anything, oh, this, oh, that, you've got to be confident. You've got to be optimistic and go, right, we're just going to hang in there and just get a gap somewhere. Just a bit of a front there before, probably a little bit earlier than expected, but anyway. Stretching up your quest here to pour with rain. It's just going to make it a real long day. It's just going to be painful.
You have to be switched on, you have to know the risks. As a skipper, you're watching your crew all the time, you're looking out for each other. There is that possibility that something bad can happen.
Not getting blown off, being such a smaller fella, I've got no weight behind me. Make sure I've got hold of one of those clay pots at all times.
Loaded with clay pots, the boats go out regularly from the jetties and the lonely anchorages around the islands. Their goal, the rocky seabed where the crayfish swarm.
All of the Tasmanian lobstermen fish in from and around the continental shelf. It's what they've always done. It's where the lobsters feed. Out past that, the ocean drops to depths in the thousands of metres.
So what we're looking for is these cracks in the rock, but at the moment it's still a little bit too deep for the lines we're going to be using. Yep. So we're going to just get in a little bit shallower.
Skipper Clyde is searching for a rocky hotspot that will deliver big reds even as the massive storm descends on the Minamurra.
Right, Isaac.
The swell is rising.
If you have to travel somewhere, you've got to keep an eye out for breakers, because your typical breaker at sea is not like a breaker on the shore, which might break on a long line. They'll just come in short lengths, maybe 100 metres, 50 metres, 150 metres. They just crest and break. If anyone's on deck and you get caught side on to a breaker like that, you can easily wash people off the deck.
A rogue wave is any wave that's 3 times higher than the surrounding sea state, and they can happen at any moment.
Zoe, hang on!
If you're working in a 5-meter sea state, at any time there is the potential for a 15-meter wave to just roll through that place. If you're working in a 10-meter sea state, there's a potential for a 30-meter wave to just roll through.
Positioning the vessel is key. If a lobster boat gets hit side on, it could roll.
We've been anchored up here and we're going to go around here where it's a bit safer and probably shoot the gear off it a bit closer. We were going to look at it a little bit deeper, but I think because me and Zach, it's our first time working together, we'll just break ourselves in a bit easier and see how we both operate.
Pedra Branka, off the south coast of Tasmania. Some of the biggest waves in the world roll and crash here. Pedra is only for the most experienced of skippers.
There's a couple of die-hard professional surfers who go out there and surf it, but I would not do that. You think I'm crazy? You want to check them blokes out? The thing what's special about Pedra is that it's a very rare place. It's beautiful, really. It's just a couple of rocks sticking out of the middle of the ocean.
Yep.
The depth change to it, Pedra, that has Southern rock lobster written all over it. Giant, steep rock cliffs with little rock ledges that fit into it as it steps up. Pedra comes up from almost 100 meters deep. The depth change, the amount of time that depth change happens at Pedra is really mind-blowing.
Yep.
Squizzy needs Pedra to deliver.
Your mind can't really compute that that's what the bottom of the ocean is going to look like down there. It's full of lobster.
The rolling storm fronts will not help. And then there's the tide.
Another thing you've got to watch out here at Pedra is the tide going against the wind, because it just makes the waves heaps more bigger. Pedra can be a deadly, horrible place in bad weather. In bad weather, I'm always on high alert. I'm always keeping a good eye out, protecting Tabor, and just making sure he stays on the boat.
I've had Squizzy tell me this. I've had lots of the skippers tell me this. They've all had some experiences out there that went, oh, okay, we almost all just died.
Well, you get nothing. I said it's like a fucking wash machine up against that.
You get older and you have some close calls, and you learn. And then those are the guys that stay.
Pedra Branka is a dangerous place to come for empty pots. Squizzy will need to find somewhere to anchor up for the night.
The sea conditions south of Tasmania could be among the worst in the southern hemisphere.
Still big sea on and pretty uncomfortable. Just a lot of rocking and rolling.
It's like being a little baby getting rocked back to sleep.
The worst what can happen is you break loose during the night and you don't wake up. You don't want to drift onto the rocks.
You need a good boat to lay out in all weather, and there is occasions when we're laying out, we lay on a big anchor, on an anchor rope and a grapple, what they call a Morris line. We sometimes have difficulty getting the Morris to hook up.
Yeah, the anchor will hook onto a bit of rock and keep us there in one place. A normal anchor is only designed to get the chain down to the bottom. It's actually the chain that'll hold you in place. This one's the other way around. Anchor will hold us in place.
Touch wood. The worst what can happen is you break loose during the night and you don't wake up. You don't want to drift onto the rocks. Wake me up when there's 200 crays in our pots.
Coming up,
many boats have come to grief by what we call rock hopping.
The #1 cause of lobster boat fatalities. Pedra Branka, southern Tasmania.
We've broken loose of our sea anchor. It sucks. You just want to sit down, have a quick something to eat, and have a snooze. And next minute, we're broken loose and we're just drifting in the weather.
Battling Mother Nature is nothing new to lobstermen. It's always been this way. Man versus the elements.
The larger vessels may be the home of fishermen from a week to a month at a time. The boats are not confined to these waters and may travel as far afield as the rugged cliffs of the southwest.
Modern technology has brought us alarms. We've got watch alarms, bilge alarms, anchor alarms. But before that, the anchor alarm was if you're in an anchorage and you're afraid you might drag anchor through the night and go up on the rocks and be wrecked, you've got to wait and throw it over the side with a cord on it, a long cord that reached back up onto the deck, reached down to the sleeping quarters, and you went to bed and tied the end of the cord around your big toe. So if the boat drifted away from where it should be, you get a tug on the big toe and you go on deck and put things right. And it was very effective, never failed.
We've got to wait for it to hook back up on a bit of bottom, or we'll have to go pull it and reset it all. And we've only got an hour of daylight left.
So then you've got to motor up on it to try and get it to drop and to hook up.
So we did the squizzy lazy way. We just waited till it hooked back up.
Another anchor alarm which I use today, typically if I'm just a few mile offshore, to have several big drinks of water before you went to bed. You could guarantee to be up through the night and have a look around.
Put the earmuffs on and try and go to sleep. Listen to it bang, crash all night.
Oh, crazy bit sluggish, the bastards. Anyway, we started too well, see? That's what happens. You start too well, no good. No good.
King Island is to the north of Pedra Branka. It's where skipper Danny is chasing $100,000 worth of lobsters in between the rolling storm fronts.
Norwesterly's just one of those winds where the crays in this area where we are, they just don't like it. Oh, Darren, the weather, that's just pox. The crays are pox too. I don't know. I would have thought we'd be getting a bit of a sniff here, but we're not. Anyway. Yeah, fucking prick. Meanwhile, on the Pilly Norling, the spears not coming up because the boys are fucking around with the pots. We know that the weather's poor and things are against us a bit, but you still got to go out there and just do your best.
The swell is still up and the lobsters are still not running hard.
Dead blank. Ah! Another loser.
This is shaping up to be a low-margin trip for Danny.
There is quite strong wind through Bass Strait very often just in a normal westerly event, but when you get a combination of an intense system like that, then you get wind directions which are changing quite rapidly, and also wind strengths that are very significant.
If the storm hits hard in the north, Danny may have to return to port half empty.
A lot of tide comes out of Bass Strait, trying to get into Bass Strait and get out of Bass Strait. It's like a funnel.
The tides in the Bass Strait, especially around King and Flinders Island, can be wild, truly wild. It's a funneling effect. It's quite shallow body of water compared to the Great Australian Bight and the Tasman Sea, and then it's also narrow between the mainland and Tasmania. That tide cycle comes and all that water's got to flow in and out of that spot.
Sometimes when the wind conditions are like they are, tides can jump a bit. And same as when the wind blows hard like it has been, it'll make the tides run a lot harder.
When the weather's poor, lost and damaged lobster pots are an occupational hazard, and at around $350 per pot, a fast-running tide can be costly.
You've got to beat the tide. The time and tide waits for no man.
But when there's a bit of tide, they'll be sitting on top of the water. So the tide's moving that way. That'll drag those pots and stretch out the string that's attached to the pot. If there's too much tide, it'll take the floats under the water. And then if I can't see them, I can't grab them.
When the swell's really big and the tide runs back into it, it just stands up and falls over and breaks on itself. And it's just, you really can't get out of it. If you turn side onto it or if something happens, if you had a breakdown, it wouldn't take much and you can lose the glass out of the wheelhouse. It's one of those places, it's just really, really gnarly, yeah. It's just not very nice.
At Hunter Island, skipper Steve and deckhand Jamie are wrestling a powerful tide.
We're going to the depths now, Jamie.
Yeah. In the areas that I fish, the tides can be a real problem, especially this time of the year. They seem to be running extra hard, so either the pots will move off where we set them, or they might not even be floating yet, so we cannot see where they are.
Oh, I don't see any, Jamie, just slipped off. I don't see any.
Steve is after 600 kilos of reds for the Hersey family restaurant, but right now, he can't find his pots.
When we're pulling the pots with the tides, they can hold the buoys under the water, so you won't even see where they are, so it can become hazardous. You don't want to run over your pots.
See there, can you? Very frustrating. You know, you sit around burning fuel. It's just the fear of unknown of not getting your actual pots back, which is something we don't want.
If Steve can't find his pots, there'll be some hungry patrons at the restaurant, and he'll be in a huge financial hole. There is a loss of the pots, what's inside them, and the cost of fuel trying to locate them.
You may find them on your GPS, but you can't actually see them, and at that stage, you just got to leave them and wait for the slack tide. So hopefully once she slacks off a bit, we'll pull them, and hopefully we can get our target for the day and get all our pots back too. This is about where our... Oh, is that one? Oh, it's an albatross. Bastards.
Coming up...
Some people boo-hoo the rogue wave.
10, 15-metre waves.
The killer wave. Fact or fiction? The Bass Strait, and a cyclonic low is blowing in from the west.
One of the most powerful and important systems that we get on the east coast of Australia is the so-called East Coast Low. It's a cyclonic system. These systems can develop very, very rapidly. Anywhere in the vicinity of an East Coast Low is quite dangerous weather for shipping. They can move in a fairly variable way, and they can intensify quite quickly and create very, very difficult conditions for fishing or for shipping generally.
Matt Cyer Island, and the Kaikoura has 200 kilos worth of lobsters in the hole. The Big Witch is going easy on them, but the storm front is fast closing in. Skipper Cracker and deckhand Scotty are after larger inshore reds.
Diggy fishing would be the most dangerous of cray fishing.
We'll put one in here just on the edge of this bit of white water. It'll be safe, Troy. It's, yeah, no, it's all good.
And if the swell's averaging 2 metres, every time there's a double one comes through somewhere. So sometimes 2 metres is all right, but 4 metres, well, hang on.
Yes, we quite often get a few in here just on the edge of the white water.
There's an old saying, it's not the sea that kills boats, it's the shore, and that is very true with the lobster fishery. The vast majority of lobster boats have been lost coming to grief on the rocks because that's their principal area of operation for most of the boats. Many boats have come to grief by what we call rock hopping, working around the rocks and reefs. This can come about by simply hitting a rock and holding your boat, or by being in near a reef when a big swell comes in unexpectedly, one out of the blue.
You ready? Yep. Beautiful. Done.
The Minamurra is on the move. Clyde is pushing through a 5-metre swell to get to safer fishing grounds. The storm front is just too big.
We're going to head out and around and take advantage of this bit of a lull in the weather. So we're going to head up to Port Davey. That'll take us about probably 3 hours to get up there. Then it's going to freshen to 35 to 40 knots tomorrow. That's why we're trying to get up there now. So we'll just stick it out for a few days until it finds up. So that's the plan. So we are all on our Pat Malone. Safety's the name of the game. Yeah, we just have to make sure that we don't do anything silly.
Well, some people boo-hoo the rogue wave or the freak wave, but I believe in them. You can see them on the shore, mostly with swells. They're just one out of the blue, one extra big one out of the blue. But I have experienced rogue waves when fishing near the rocks. One big swell will come out of the blue and break on the shore further off than what you anticipate, and it can have dire consequences. I did have a man washed off deck right into the water at one stage. Fortunately, we drifted straight down on him and the boat rolled. We were able to pull him aboard very quickly, but we were very lucky on that occasion.
From where you sit off Port Davey in Tasmania, if you go straight west, the nearest piece of land in that straight westerly line is South America. Those big swells that have come from South America basically start to cap and crest. And yeah, and that creates this easily 10, 15 meter waves and 50 plus knots of wind. There's a random chance at any moment that this kind of wave can come in, and if you're not perfectly bow on to it to ride over this wall of water, the boat will flip. And if it flips, it's over. A trawler that flips is not necessarily going to right itself. In fact, it's quite uninclined to right itself.
In these conditions, it's hard enough just standing up, let alone throwing the grapple and pulling in a pot. Zach's a rookie, but he's doing really well. He's had a couple of misses, but that's to be expected on these sort of days.
The Minamurra is racing to collect its pots before the storm completely takes hold.
This is where it can get a bit tricky sometimes. The boys go one way and the line's still the other.
nasty weather. Fuck, miss!
The missing with the grapples, it's taking longer. You really want to try and make use of the time that you've got for fishing. Lost time of pots in the water is lost revenue, really.
Far out.
Matt Cyer Island.
Not good. Not good fishing.
And Skipper Warren knows Mother Nature is always the boss at sea.
Another pot that's blank.
Blank after blank after blank. It's not what we come to sea for, but it's a part of fishing.
Yeah, just blank. Another blank pot. No graves.
This is what I usually look at, the black and white, so Tassie's. Yeah, just see Tassie there. Usually when you can't see Tassie, that's going to be pretty windy, eh? There's another patch of purple coming after this one, so if that happens to hit us, that's 12 to 15 metre swells, so that's just absolute write-off.
Going till midnight, a strong wind warning for the central north coast.
Bit of a change brewing down there ahead of us.
Going till midnight.
There you go.
Skipper Snotty is on the phone to his dad Warren, trying to convince him to motor home now.
Yeah, if I was you, I'd be coming home. After that, there might be a chance of opening up again and getting another trip out of it.
No, I'm not going to sit out here for another 4 or 5 days. I wouldn't have minded waiting a couple of days if we had a chance of getting to work, but if we're not going to get to work, we're certainly not going to sit there for 4 or 5 or 6 days or something.
No, I don't blame you. I'd be coming home too, old boy, so...
Miss!
Oops. How'd you go? You get him?
Nah. Just keep jumping off the rope.
I think over the years I've learned that when things go bad, you really have to keep cool at sea, because if you lose it, I think that's when things happen and it gets worse.
Just seems to be getting caught up on there and just flipping over.
Cut that off.
I hit it, it's just flipping over.
Yeah.
I'm still getting the accuracy there, but the grapple seems to jump off it a fair bit.
The rope probably got hooked up on that little bit of fluff there. Zach owes us a beer.
I'm really pleased with Zach. He's done really well today. In these extreme conditions, he's thriving on it. He's got the right attitude to be a great deckhand, and I'm quite surprised it's only his second trip.
He's the boss of the grapple.
Skipper Clive's remaining pots have all been set in shallow water.
Experience tells me how far I can push myself, the boat and the crew. I just know what limit I can go to. We're copping and flogging from this weather, we're pulling our pots and we're getting absolutely nothing. When there's a big swell on and you're in around the rocks, your pots are more likely to move around, so if a pot's moving around on the bottom, a lobster's not going to crawl into it because it scares them away.
Coming up, it's code red for the Minamurra.
55-foot steel boat sitting on a rock.
Skipper Clyde's just too close to shore.
So the pole is what we call a paravane that folds into the water, and that helps steady the boat up when the weather's a bit rough and rolling around. I call them the cat's whiskers because it's like feeling the bottom sometimes. When you're getting in close and it touches the bottom, you know you're getting close to rocks.
We were going up along the cliffs and air bubbles in the water, couldn't see it, next thing bang. It's not a good feeling. 55-foot steel boat sitting on a rock.
The pole just touching the bottom, makes me realise I'm in the danger zone and I need to sort of clear off and get back out in the deeper water.
It's not a very nice night to be a deckhand, that's for sure. You can find better jobs than this.
Team Bold contenders retrieving the last of its pots in big seas before heading home. Target missed. The extreme weather is to blame.
At least I've got windows in front of me. Oh, fuck! That was a big one.
Even homeward bound Squizzy has learnt you can never relax.
What's been the scariest things happened to your tea, Squiz?
Well, that'll go back to my days as a deckhand on the Minamara when we got wiped out by them 3 waves off the Mole Cay.
Oh, I remember that.
Squizzy's talking about the same Minamara Clive now skippers.
It was just rough and horrible, and the heart was going. Ripped off one arm, ripped off the second arm. That's a paravein arm.
Oh, shit.
Yep. Put my arms around the pot hauler and looked out, and I couldn't tell if I was still on the boat or in the water.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. Had the dinghy on the back, TriStar, brand new, and it folded over the gunnel. That's how powerful they were.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You can see why I like fishing out wide. Someone was looking after us that day because we shouldn't have come out. That's that simple. We should have been all dead. Home sweet home. It's been a long night, but I'm glad we're here now. The responsibility of being a skipper is you got the boat, and most importantly, the crew is your responsibility. A lot of people can't handle that pressure. You're out there in 40 knots of wind, pulling the gear, and you're watching that deckhand on deck like a hawk. You just go with gut feel. If I think it's not safe, I'll just pull the pin, come in, mate. It's not about the money, it's about safety.
In the north, lobster lovers won't go hungry at the Hersey family restaurant. Steve's landed 500 kilos.
How you going with it, man? Yeah, not too bad.
I'm still trying to, learn off my pop and my father as well, because that knowledge is just never ending and I'm always learning every day. Like being out at sea, it'll throw a different challenge at you, so you always got to be on the ball, I guess.
4.6, not quite the biggest, but she'll do.
Danny Fox rode out the wild stormy weather and eventually hit his 1,000 kilo target.
Yeah, look forward to getting home, just getting off the boat, having a nice long shower. Always look forward to seeing the family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danny.
Much appreciated. Cheers.
Thank you.
All right.
Clive navigated the rolling storm fronts and filled the Minamara with 900 kilos of big reds.
Bit of a improvement this morning. Got some nice quality fish here. Pretty happy with that. Woohoo!
The secret of fishing is to be smart and respectful of the ocean, because the ocean is the boss out there. It tells you what you're going to do. You can't tell it. We're in front now, like we're starting to make money.
Every skipper stayed out longer than expected. Targets were mostly hit, but the storm decimated their bottom line profits.
Doesn't matter how long you've been at sea, how much fishing you've done, you will learn something every trip.
There's not many.
See you on the edge? Yep. Whether it's from someone or the fish. They're the masters. So we control by masters all the time. We're home, we control by masters. We're out at sea, we control.